Our next inductee is Coach Larry Wattenbarger. Coach Wattenbarger came to Triton High School in the fall of 1972. A 1965 graduate of Mabton High School in Mabton, Washington, Coach Wattenbarger went on to earn a bachelor's degree in education from Grace College. Coach Wattenbarger also earned a master's in education from St. Francis University. Coach Wattenbarger began teaching English at Triton High School during the 1972-1973 school year. The following 40 years, he would teach 7th grade social studies, 8th grade U.S. history, world geography, and even a few health classes. Coach Wattenbarger started his coaching career during the 1972-1973 school year. He coached 8th grade boys basketball, 9th grade boys basketball, girls varsity basketball, and boys and girls varsity tennis. Coach Wattenbarger was the first tennis coach at Triton High School. Coach Wattenbarger's 1983 girls basketball team won the school's first Northern State Conference championship. During his time at Triton, Coach Wattenbarger was also involved in other areas of athletics outside of coaching. For many years, he was the track starter at all of Triton's track meets. He also ran the clock at the home Plymouth games when Plymouth was using Triton High School's gym. Coach Wattenbarger retired following the 2013-2014 school year. Coach Wattenbarger enjoys spending time with his family, watching NASCAR, and working as an auctioneer for Ball Auction. Coach Wattenbarger currently resides in Bourbon with his wife, Dina. We'd like to thank Coach Wattenbarger for his many years of service by inducting him tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Larry Wattenbarger. Congratulations. This time, I'd like to officially induct Larry Wattenbarger to the Triton Athletic Hall of Fame.
It looks like I have an extremely long speech. However, I just turned 72 in December, and I went through and I was practicing my speech at my computer, and I got down today to pick it up to come in after I'd run it off, and guess what? I couldn't read it. It was too small. So we got another half a ream of paper in here because I have to have the big print, okay? Today has just been an astounding thing for me. I've gotten surprised. My wife had a couple of secrets that she didn't tell me, but I want some people to stand up. I considered my ball players to be part of my family, and I got some girls that played basketball for me that showed up. Wait a minute, I want to be a Jamie Irwin and wander around, right? But Lori Feldman, you were up here, stand up. She came from Arizona for this. We have Sheila Fisher-Thompson, stand up. There we go. Stephanie Bannick. There's Steph over there. Bobby Bacher-Cousins. There she is. Jane Copeland-Ganshorn. There we go. Penny Garber. Drove down from Michigan for this. Don't hold it against her. She's a Notre Dame fan. Amy Ellinger-Wagema. Did I pronounce that right? Close enough. Jody Wanamaker-Elmore. Mendy Martin-Davis. And Jamie Mason-McIntyre. Thank you, ladies, for coming. You have made my day. I want to take this evening to thank the Hall of Fame Selection Committee for bestowing this honor on me. I also want to congratulate Larry, Taryn, and Mr. McIntyre, as I used to call him, for coming in. And I want to thank Jane Ganshorn, Hal Kuntz, and Roger Shorey for this honor. I can't tell you how much it means to me. I also want to thank my family, wife Emily, Okay, I didn't print this big enough. My finger was, okay. Wife Dina. There, is that better? Guess what we're going to talk about on the way home? Daughter Alyssa Pugh and her husband Wes. Daughter Emily and her future husband, nobody's supposed to know this, Sean Montgomery. And Riley Montgomery, thanks for coming. Granddaughter Casey Pugh, and her fiance Ted is not here. I believe he's up to his ears in chicken poo-poo. So, and supporting me. And also, I got some friends at our table. Claire and Roy Bench, thank you so much for coming. It means the world to me. And Kay Feldman, thank you for coming. We're missing one tonight, Jan Cottle. She wanted to be here so bad, but I got a phone call from her Thursday, and trust me, if she was as bad as she sounded, we did not want her here. She has walking pneumonia, has been in the ER, and she was so upset that she wasn't going to be here, but our concern is that she get healthy and maybe be back here. I keep having a problem with that thing. Next year. I also wish that our grandson Kyle Adam Pugh was here tonight to enjoy this honor that's being given to his papa. As I said in my little deal that I printed out, I will never forget him coming over to my room after school because he loved athletics. He loved girls more than he loved athletics. And I couldn't figure out why he wanted to come over. Well, he found some high school girls that would let him run with them in the halls. When I walked into my room after school and there was a pair of his shorts and his shoes, I knew he had found the likes of Brianna Lemler, may she rest in peace, because that was his girlfriend, Allie Cann, and Jody Lemler. And knowing Kyle the way we all did, I can guarantee he's sitting with Brianna tonight watching this whole thing. So this is for Kyle as well. This is a night of first. I believe I'm the first person to give two what you would call induction speeches. Lori got sick and couldn't come to her induction, so I had to give her speech. By the way, the check, I guess, is still in the mail on that. Yeah. And then I'm giving mine tonight. So it's a first deal. And this isn't bad if you consider that a wheat farm boy from central Washington State is up here in front of a bunch of Hoosiers. And I want you to know that when I came here, I had a background that some might consider to be Amish. I went to a one-room schoolhouse. And we did not have indoor plumbing, so I found out real quick what an outhouse was. And we went big time. We built a two-room schoolhouse, and that was big. Except we didn't have enough kids, so we only had one teacher, and we only met in one room. So on that basis, I kind of feel a little bit of a draw here to this. And oh, by the way, I was the top male student at Dorothy School District number 24 in grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. Notice I didn't say top student. That darn Linda Williams could beat me in English, math, science. There was only two of us in those grades at elementary school. So, I was the top male student. I went to Mabton High School, which was 12 miles away. Now, being raised in a school system like I was, there was no organized sports. And so when I went to high school, with my size, I became a candidate for basketball. There were a couple problems. I was so predominantly left-handed that I didn't even know what this hand was for. But I had a coach that stressed fundamentals with me. And I kind of incorporated that when I became a coach. Stress fundamentals. And I was able to go to make the team. I got to get varsity letters my sophomore, junior, and senior years in basketball. And so that's how I got started in athletics. I was raised in the Brethren Church, and so when it came time to go to college, obvious thing, go to Grace. So I came to Grace. And as I got through with Grace, I sent out applications all over the state of Washington to teach. I got a contract in the mail from Goldendale, Washington. Whoops, dropped my page. Got a contract from Goldendale, Washington. Never had interviewed me, signed the contract, and so I showed up there to teach. Now, one thing that I do need to tell you here is that I would disappoint you people if there was not some questionable vocabulary. And I see we have some younger people here. So as I start to tell a story and you see me kind of go like that, Larry, the grandkids, you might want to cover their ears, okay? So I go out to Washington in June of 1969, show up at Goldendale High School, meet my superintendent for the first time, and I go to him and I said, okay, show me my room. I'm excited to coach basketball and to teach. And he takes me down, shows me, he came back. I said, no, what do I teach? He says, well, you've got 3 classes of social studies, 1 class of English, and 2 classes of art. And all of a sudden, my life started to pass in front of me here. And I said, sir, you misunderstood. I went to school and I studied social studies and PE. And he goes, do you have a college degree? Yes, I do. Well, you're teaching 7th and 8th graders. If you can't baffle them with bull, you're not a teacher. So that's what I used at Triton. Now, when I came here, there's my art class. I forgot to tell you about that. It wasn't art. It was models and hobbies. And there was these were a bunch of lumberjack farming kids, all my size. The choir teacher was a lady about that tall. They made the boys take choir. And the boys that were quite small would not sing. They practiced belching and farting. When they came to my class of models and hobbies, they were overjoyed to get to smell glue and paint and to get to work with their hands. You know, sometimes things happen when you're doing something, it doesn't make sense, and then later on you go, it was meant to be. When you were the JV boys basketball coach at Goldendale, you and the varsity boys coach were also the boys and girls tennis coaches. And so I became a tennis coach when I was out there. After 3 years of being at Goldendale, I decided to move back to Indiana. And so I moved back in the summer of 1972, got back here, put my application out at 10 or 12 schools because I needed a job. And one of the things that you get to do is you get to hear some stories. Now, I don't know the lady's name, but in the fall of '72, Triton had a woman teacher who was assigned to teach English 3 periods a day and the rest of the time remedial English, and she did not want to do that. On the opening day of school, when the teachers got done with their early meeting, they send them to the rooms to prepare for the rest of the next day's school. She prepared by going down and typing out her resignation. So the first 4 days in 1972, Mrs. Liggett, remember her, Sarita? She was the teacher. Now, on the first day of school here at, on Labor Day, Monday, September 3rd, 1972, I get a phone call at 7 a.m. And this phone call, I picked it up and I go, hello? And some of you will recognize because you had probably heard of this guy. The answer on the other line was, Ricker here, can you start tomorrow? Okay, now, I had to ask a very important question. What is a Ricker? So I said, what's a Ricker? Superintendent of Triton. Okay, now I had applied to all these schools. I knew them by their town names. I had to ask the next and most important, what's a Triton? So he said, we're in Bourbon. I said, okay. So the next day, I show up. Day after Labor Day, 3-piece suit. I never did that again. And I was to go teach. After school, I was to go over to the superintendent's office and sign my contract. I go over, I meet Mr. Ricker for the first time. And I walked in and signed the contract. I said, now, I don't know if you know this or not, but I said, I really wasn't trained to be an English teacher. He says, oh, I know that. He said, I talked to your boss out in Washington. You give excellent spelling tests. So I became the English teacher because I was good at spelling tests. And so I started teaching English, and he told me, he says, you're just going to do it for a year, and we're moving you to social studies. He says, you're going to coach 8th grade boys basketball. I don't know if you remember, the coach at that time was a guy named Larry McConkey. I go to Larry, and I go, Larry, what do you want me to do? He says, I want you to teach them how to play basketball. Fundamentals is more important than winning. Don't worry about your record. Just teach them, because when they get to high school, I want them to have these fundamental skills. So that's what we did. And I'm going to tell you something. Did we ever do a lot of fundamentals? In fact, do you remember a guy, he's still around here, Doug Shively? He played for me. Several years ago, he and I were talking. He says, you know, I liked you as a coach, but he says, we were kind of concerned about you at the very beginning because he said, we didn't know if you were ever going to let us shoot the ball because all we did was run drills. But he said, we learned how to play basketball. I said, well, that's the important thing. And then I got called in to a meeting with Mr. McConkey and a couple of the parents because we weren't running plays. We were running an offense. And they thought we ought to do something different. And I said, okay. And I explained to them what we were doing. They said, okay, that's fine. You see, what they didn't realize, I was running an offense by a somewhat famous basketball coach. I think his name was Robert Montgomery Knight. Yeah, that was the guy. And so that's what we were running. And they didn't realize what we were doing. So we did that. And then Mr. Ricker comes by one day and he goes, hey, one of the reasons we hired you was because you coach tennis out in Washington. I go, yeah. Well, we got a guy named Wilford Gottschalk, and he wants us to build tennis courts. I said, we only got 2 in town, if you remember them, down at the park. Chain link fence type of nets. That worked out real well. So they're going to build them. But we had a few problems. First of all, the school board the school board didn't want to spend a lot of money. So if you'll notice there, between the north tennis courts and the parking, there's a pretty high fence, right? They were going to build a low fence because it was cheaper. And I said, if you do that, we're going to get a kid killed running out across to pick up those things. those things called tennis balls. Oh, so we built the big fence. Then the guy that was putting it in, he puts it in July. I don't know if you've ever been around here in July type of weather we have. And on a weekend, when they were out putting the net standards in, they left their tractors sitting on the court. We had the only tennis court in northern Indiana with tractor divots. And he put black sealer on the court. In those days, that sealer would come off. So we were going through tennis balls like there was no tomorrow, because after 4 games, we had to switch tennis ball. Playing with black tennis balls on a black court wasn't exactly the easiest thing to do. And then one of the things I found out is that the kids that came out for tennis, and we had about 30 out the first year, knew nothing about tennis. You know, that scoring of 15, 30, 40, love. Farm kids had no idea what that meant. And so we had to do that. We had to teach them how to keep score. We finally decided after the first year we should have a boys team and a girls team. So we ended up with being 2 teams, and I was both the boys and the girls coach, and I was the girls coach until we hired a very nice lady who's here tonight, Claire Ben. She became the real girls tennis coach at Triton. And enjoyed those kids and how much they played for me. Now, of course, one of the things I'm famous for is girls basketball. When I came to Triton, there was no varsity girls basketball. Some of you ladies will remember this. You had GAA, and you had to wait until they had the basketball unit in PE. That was your whole basketball career. Well, they started a girls basketball team, and Jan Cottle, who can't be here tonight, as the tennis coach, they forced her to be the basketball coach. She did not want to coach tennis, or girls basketball. Well, the next year, Indiana says, if we're going to have this, we're going to have a state championship. Anybody know who won the first state championship in Warsaw? Remember that. Well, one day Mr. Ricker, my old buddy, comes rolling in. He goes, hey, Jan Cottle would like to get out of coaching basketball. Would you be willing to become the girls' basketball coach? And I said, okay, there's a major thing I got to know here. Do they play boys' rules or girls' rules? And if you remember back in the day, there was boys, girls. I never could figure out, because some people were running down, some people stayed and all that. He says, well, hell, I don't know. Oh, I forgot to do that. I said, well, that's kind of important. Next day he says, boys' rules. I said, okay, I'll do it. So that's how I became the boys or girls basketball rules. And so that's how we got started with that. Now, to put it mildly, these girls had not had much in the area of fundamentals. I felt so sorry for them in what we were having to do. Girls were treated as second-class citizens. We got to practice most of our time in the old gym, and most of our games were there. Occasionally, we would get to play in the big gym, and that was a big deal because we could practice over there as well. And I thought, well, this isn't going to... So I go back to Mr. Ricker. I go, hey, who's going to be my assistant? He goes, an assistant? I go, yeah, like an assistant basketball coach. He says, we don't have one. If you want an assistant, it's you, at no extra pay. I says, oh, so guess what? I became the JV girls basketball coach. And obviously, having coached boys, not having had any sisters, there was a lot I needed to learn about girls. And one of the things that I was very concerned about was that there would be things that would come up that probably girls needed to discuss, and they didn't need this dumb wheat farmer from Washington discussing it with them. So we asked the mothers to sign up and to become volunteer coaches. Great. Everybody had a schedule. Well, one night I was trying to show them how to do a certain drill, and I was out there playing basketball, and I tripped and twisted my ankle. Oh my God, did that hurt. I'm writhing around on the floor. Now, many of you remember a fine lady that's no longer with us, Jeanette Wanamaker. She was my assistant that night. And I'm there trying to see if I'm ever going to walk again, and she comes stomping out on the floor and looks down at me and says, you better get your ass up, because I know nothing about basketball. So that's how it worked. Oh, by the way, first varsity girls game I coach against, Mr. Sticker, who did we play? There you go. First game, they're the state champions. Jan Soyas was their coach. And, before the game, the coaches are shaking hands. So, she was asking me about, I said, hey, by the way, Jan, if you press us tonight, I'm going to come down and smack you after the ball game. Her hand came back. I don't know, if it must have been how I said it. It offended her somehow. And she kind of got standoffish, and she walked back to the huddle and looked back like, who is this idiot over here? Quite frankly, we were going to have trouble if nobody pressed us getting the ball down the court by ourselves about 1/4 of the time. My girls worked so hard, but they just did not have the skills. So we play Warsaw. And guess what? They didn't press us. Now, they won by 30-some points, but that's immaterial. After the game, Ms. Soyas comes down, she says, hey, I didn't know how to take what you said earlier. She says, you're right, your kids aren't that good. I've been there. I knew what was going on. And so that was my getting involved in sports with that. Now, one of the things that I told you that our girls got treated as second-class citizens, we got to change. Something called Title IX came along. They had to start doing things for us. Go back and look at some of the old yearbooks. You'll notice the volleyball uniforms that the team wore were the basketball uniforms the team wore. Our varsity always had to wear white. The JV always had to wear blue, because that's what they had for volleyball. We had to call other schools and say, hey, I know you're going to have to bring different uniforms, because we only got one set for blue and one set for white. And then all of a sudden, we got them to buy us some bright yellow uniforms. They weren't that pretty, but oh my God, the girls thought they'd all got new prom dresses. It was something else. One day, a good friend of mine, fellow teacher, Dave Shively, he goes, I got a question for you. He says, what are you going to do about the Feldman girl? And I go, okay, I don't know a Feldman girl. What are you talking about? He says, well, there's a girl down in elementary school that's the top scorer on the boys' team. She's one of their leading rebounders. I go, hey, great. He goes, no. I go, what do you mean no? When she gets to the 7th grade, she's going to have to drop out of basketball. There's no 7th and 8th grade program. I go, oh, my. So I said, well, before I make a real fool of myself, I said, when do they play next? Well, they played the next day, so I go over and watch the game. When I got done with there, I headed right to the administration. I go, we need to have a 7th and 8th grade deal. Because I said, we got a girl coming up. She can't afford to sit and do nothing. So we got a 7th and 8th grade girls basketball program. Dave should have kept his mouth shut. He was the first 7th grade and 8th grade girls basketball coach. Now, Lori Feldman back here was a coach's dream. And I can tell you that I did nothing to make her a great ball player. That was inherited. I was just there filling out the scorecard, that type of thing. But as you go back and look at things happening, okay, everybody, she had a great aunt. Inez Feldman. Does anybody remember good old Inez? She used to sit right, when she came to our games, sit right behind the bench. I'm going to try to imitate what happened. You better do something different, Wattenbarger. Because what you got them doing ain't working. That sound about like her? Well, anyways, as I conclude, I want to say thank you. It's been fun being involved in Triton athletics. I thank the Almighty for bringing me to Bourbon and to Triton. It hasn't always been rosy, but it's been great. So thank you very much. Now, I got something we're going to do. Alyssa and Casey, if you'd bring something up here for me. We got 2 guys in here. Oh, she's got another deal. You okay? We've got 2 guys sitting here who are the only 2 basketball coaches in Triton history to win state championships. Is that correct? Did we replace the floor at the gym? And there were extra pieces. We've got autographed pieces by Jason Groves and Mark Heater. And those 2 ladies are going to give each one of those guys a autograph copy. So go give them their deals. And thank you guys for what you've done for Triton. Yep. Emily, would you bring one up here, please? Now, one of the things that I think is important that we have some recognition, because didn't we sell some of these without the autographs? Didn't we have plaques or something like that? Yeah. How many of you bought one? All right, tightwads, you better be paying attention to what I'm about ready to say. Mason, could we put an autograph by both coaches somewhere in a trophy case? Okay, there you go. There's that. And I've got one I'm going to give to Larry Locker Lemler for the Bourbon Museum. Now, I've got another one. How many would like to have one of those? Pardon me? Is this thing still working? Nobody wants a piece of the Triton gym floor autographed by the 2 coaches, the only 2 coaches in Triton history. You do. Good. Thank you. Because guess what we're going to do? We're going to have an auction. I know who your parents are. Now, Les has got it up here. What did they sell them for? The ones without any autograph? $400. Anybody know CPR? Because I think I'm going to need it. Was it about $30? Anybody want to give $30 for one? You'll give 30? Who'll give 35? Wait a minute, I need a ringman. Steve Feldman, where are you at? Get up here, be a ringman. Miss Boyer, you can be a ringman over here too. Yeah. I've talked to your family. You're not afraid to bark. Can you say yep? Oh, no, you're down here working with the people.
I can't see it when I'm not up here.
Oh, I picked on a short person. Well, way to go.
Tell you who it is.
You have to, can you go yup?
Here, yeah.
That's it? No, wait a minute. I want to hear your yup.
Yep.
A little louder.
I can get loud, don't worry.
I talked to Kevin. I know this. Hear me? Let's hear a big yup.
Yep.
A little louder.
Really? Yep.
Almost there. One more time.
Yep.
Now we got it. 35. Now 40. You're going to be 35, but 40. 30. And by the way, you don't have to pay tonight. Will you take a check or cash next week? 35 could have been 40. I'm 35 could have been 40. 40 now 5. 40 could have been 5. Come on, Mike, get in. 45 now 50. Now 5. 50 could have been now 5. 50 all could have been 5. Now 60. 50 60 now 5. I'm at 60 all could have been now 5. But 5 60 ain't could have been now 5. Now 70. Now 5. 70 could have been now 5. But 5 75. I'm at 70 all could have been now 5. Now 80. Now 5. Now 90. Now 90. Now 5. 95, 98, 5, now 100, 95 could have been now 100, I'm at 95, 100, now 5, 105, 100 could have been now 5, now 10, 110, now 20, 120. Okay, 115 just because it's you. Now 20, 115 could have been now 20. By the way, I forgot to announce. I'm talking. The money goes to girls' athletics. 125, 30. I'm in 125, 30. Now 5. 130 could have been now 5. Now 40. Now 5. 40 could have been now 5. 140 could have been now 5. But 5. 140 could have been now 5. 140 could have been now 5. Now 50. Now 5. 150 could have been 50. Now 5. 55. 150 could have been now 5. Now 60. 155, 60. Now 5. 160 could have been now 5. 165. Now 70. Now 70. Now 5. 170 could have been now 5. 5. Now 80. 180, now 5, 185, 180 could have been now 5, now 90, now 90, now 5, 190 could have been 5, now 200, now 5, I'm at 200 could have been now 5, now 10, 25, now 10, now 15, now 20, now 220, 225, now 30, now 30, now 35, 35, now 40 could have been now 40, now 5, 45, now 50, 245 could have been now 50, now 5, now 60, 255 could have been now 60, now 5, now 70, now 70, 80, 280, 290, now 300, 310, 320, 330, 330, 320 could have been now 330, now 40, 340, now 50, 340 could have been now 50, now 60, now 70. You're done? 360, I could have been now 70, now 3. Any of you guys want in here? It went way past where I was thinking. 360 could have been now 70. Mike, you get it at 360. Mike Byron. And I'll tell you what, Bobby, you won't believe this, but we got one more, and I'll let you have it for the same price. Is that all right? There we go. Thank you. Made about $700, didn't we?
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job. Here's your plaque.
Thank you. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Well, yes, a night of firsts. Wow. Awesome. Thank you, Larry, for your donation. I expect that next year he'll be wanting us to induct him as a contributor. You know, I had something planned, but I don't know if it's even worth it now, but, well, yeah. Sorry, Troy, Taryn. They said they were going to sing and dance, but that's what they told me last night, but I don't think it's going to compare to that. Whew. You know, in the program, if you read it closely, Larry mentioned that he may lacked in the area of fashion. And he brought it up, and so I couldn't help but think of that. And as you look through the yearbooks, you'll see, you probably saw him up there, some pictures. So, Larry, if you need us to take some of that money that you just raised us to buy you some new clothes, we can. Larry, thanks again, and congratulations.